Hello. I would apologize for being late, but I don't think anyone really is particularly prudent on my uploads. What had happened is I basically tried to allow myself to be given up, given over for a week and let nature decide. Let the decisions not be made, but allow for them to happen around me. And in giving up resting control, I ended up going to work more than normal. I was called into work. And there were some things that I should have possibly acted upon that I didn't, and there are things that I shouldn't have acted upon that I also didn't. So the world sort of equals out in its own way. I am more or less feeling lucky to still have a job at this point, and plan to continue to exist, I suppose. The world is a strange place where people can consciously choose almost every day to do things that are challenging and live a life of suffering rather than a life of comfort. As I sit here, I am unknowing in whether or not I will actually be heading somewhere today, and then I have plans for if I don't, but I don't have backup plans for if I do. And I've also didn't have plans for yesterday. Yesterday is the day that I make for plans and or planning related activities to fall upon. And I did no such thing. But now that I'm more or less back in control, I guess you could say, as in control as I get, I find myself wondering what it's all worth. What if the world still happened without my direct input, and it always will, then what value do I have to this world? What unique perspective do I bring, if any? For what purpose do I exist, if one is a thing? And I think that this is a foolish line of questioning ultimately, as you are meant to create your own niche, your own ideas, your own version of reality, your own viewpoint. There's no such thing as a belonging unless you make one. There's no such thing as a understanding unless you make one. There's no such thing as meaning unless you make one. So what does that all add up to? This adds up to the fact that I've been raging at the fact that I don't have meaning without actively trying to go out and find one or make one of my own, largely due to my own fear. But also, that's just kind of the way things are right now, is I'm actively looking for a why, so I can then pursue a how. My why has been this abstracted version of a dream that I've had since I was a child. And I'm not certain however many other people that were originally tied to this dream still remember it. And most of them are kind of wrapped up in their own thing. And I'm almost to the point now where I wonder if me following through with the dream would then throw off other people's now versions of dreams, because I'm still living in the past. But I haven't gotten a new dream, a more modernized dream, I guess you would call it. Because currently, the only thing I really desire is to continue in the state that I am. But that leads to stagnation. You have to aim higher than your position, or else you'll always just be where you are. That said, I am in an elevated position from where I've ever been before without having to particularly aim too high, and also still trying to better myself. I mean, I'm almost finished with this degree that I've been working on for years. Not to say it's been a particularly hard degree. It's just life keeps getting in the way. I guess you could say I keep allowing life to get in the way because I didn't have a consistency. I didn't have a plan for what to do if things fell through, even though they kept falling through. And I was just like, well, I guess I'll wait and see what happens, rather than, okay, well, I'll tackle this head on. And now that it's weird because I'm passively trying to allow nature to take over while also actively trying to live in each day. It's a complicated series of events, really, but it's also quite simple. That's basically life in a nutshell, is understanding just how simple everything is. Understanding that, by and large, you can make it as complicated or as simple as you want it to be. The world doesn't care. The world is the world. The world will keep doing the world things. The people in the world will keep doing the people in the world things, regardless of whether or not you take part in it. So, you can choose to actively be a functioning part of it, or you can choose to sit out, and you can choose to sit by the sidelines and wish that you could be something that you're not. It doesn't sound particularly fulfilling. It doesn't sound like something that most people should or do aim for. Instead, this is something that people try and get away from, this stagnation, because it does not lead towards the type of survival, the type of evolution that we've been aiming for. People say that we are weaker as a species currently than we have been in the past, where it's more that we have a reliance on a mental strength rather than a physical strength. And this mental strength is a complicated thing. The longer you live, the more it develops. But everyone's expecting it to simply just be out of the gate, just there, where it's something that you develop over time. Every day, whether you acknowledge it, believe it, or bow to it or not, every day you're growing, changing, and learning. You could be growing and changing and learning for the worse, or for the worse from a perspective. But it's a question of whether or not you're actively noticing these changes, and then noticing the fact that you are different now than you have been over the last few years. And I know I'm different right now than I've been over the last year, for sure. I've known that for the past 6 or so months, and I will continue to know this as I'm moving forward, that I am not the same person today as I was last year today. That's simply an inevitability. So then the question becomes, what do you want? Well then, I didn't really have an answer, but I think I'm stumbling upon one, which is I want the world to be a better place. Now, how do you make that happen? Well, you can actively be the match that strikes the flame, or you could be the hand that gathers the kindling. But you have to be a functioning part. You have to have a specific job, I suppose you could call it, a niche. You have to pick something that you want to be good at and become that. Become the best tool of your trade and function.